McLaren has done so well that all the other racing teams are now asking if their car is even legal. What people first thought was a bendy front wing, something that Red Bull and Ferrari will copy starting from Austin, has now moved to the back of the car, or more exactly the back wing of the McLaren car. During the Baku race, people saw something weird happening with the DRS flap on Piastri's car. It looked like it was kind of opening by itself when the car was going really fast. So this creates a whole new bunch of questions. Is the McLaren team following all the rules, and if they're not, is it too late for the racing officials to do something about it? It's pretty clear that McLaren will be the team everyone else has to beat for the rest of 2024. Now that they've taken first place in the team championship, it's obvious that getting it back from Red Bull or challenging them from Ferrari's side will be pretty much impossible. With 4 wins in 2024, many fans are totally amazed at how a team that could only win a few races before is now fighting for both championships. But here we are, and the reason is all the improvements they made to their car. Ever since McLaren started adding new parts in Miami, the car started acting like it could win championships. But because of a lot of missed chances in Spain, Canada, and Silverstone, the McLaren team lost out on great opportunities to be even closer to Verstappen than the 59-point gap Norris has right now compared to the 3-time world champion. But in the second half of the season, or more exactly from Zandvoort onwards, McLaren brought out another upgrade package that seemed almost impossible to beat. Norris made a big statement win on Verstappen's home track and finished 21 seconds ahead of him. Meanwhile, Piastri won in Baku by successfully defending against Leclerc for 30 laps without having DRS help. Now that last part is what we're going to focus on for most of this video. Not having DRS in Baku while being chased by a car that does have it usually means you're going to lose for sure. The long straight that's just over 2 kilometers long can be deadly if you're in front without any car giving you at least a slipstream. If not DRS help, and you have someone chasing you with an open flap and a 10 to 20 kilometers per hour advantage. This is how Piastri managed to get ahead of Leclerc on lap 20. While many thought the Monaco driver would get his position back by staying within 1 second of the Australian driver, that didn't happen. There is, however, very interesting proof that shows how the DRS flap, a part of the back wing of the McLaren car, moves under certain situations, like when it's being pushed with more speed. The whole point of the DRS flap is to reduce drag from the car when it opens and add more speed to the car as a result. However, for it to open, the car needs to be within 1 second of the car ahead. In this case, there was no car ahead of Piastri, but what was clear is that once he stepped on the gas pedal from turn 16 onwards, the DRS flap started to turn. In this rough picture, you can compare the DRS flap when it's not being pushed with the maximum speed available compared to when it is. If we look at things the right way, it does look like the McLaren kind of has a half DRS when there are no cars ahead. This could be a big reason why Leclerc found it so hard to attack Piastri for more than 30 laps, even with him having a top speed advantage and a car package that seemed better throughout the entire weekend. The Monaco driver failed to make the most of yet another pole position in his career. For comparison, we could look at Leclerc's wing at the same part of the track. While some bending and turning can be noticed here and there, it's nowhere near the amount that McLaren's car has shown. This comes right after the McLaren team had a lot of people pointing fingers at them for using the bendy front wing of the car that saw the upper flaps move under certain situations, which is not allowed by the rules. But when the racing officials started investigating this matter, their response was pretty unclear. As of now, it's legal, and even if it's not, we can't take any action for the rest of 2024. Therefore, if we see a big change in 2025, we'd know that McLaren has at the very least used a great loophole in the rulebook that allowed them to not just compete but probably win at least one of the 2 championships available. If we look at this picture, we would see that the speed difference between an open and closed DRS flap is the smallest with the McLaren, while it's the largest with the Red Bull car. This shows that the flexibility of the DRS flap that McLaren has is clearly the highest on the grid. While that isn't necessarily against the rules, It's something the racing officials should take a proper look at because it creates a sort of mini DRS that helped Piastri defend successfully against Leclerc for so long. The direction the racing officials moved with the front wings has pushed both Red Bull and Ferrari to follow the path that McLaren has created in front of them. In Austin, it's very likely that we're going to see a bit more of the flexible front wings on the Red Bull as well as the Ferrari. This is something that was confirmed by both Horner and Vasseur, who were the first ones to complain not just about McLaren but also Mercedes for having this type of wing. According to these team bosses, this was strongly not allowed by the rules, and there was no way around it. Yes, Red Bull also found themselves in a similar situation last year when they were accused of wearing down the plank much more than the allowed limit. But when the rules were introduced in Spa, nothing actually changed in terms of who was winning. As a matter of fact, the team that accused them, Mercedes, took a step down in performance, so they somehow hurt themselves with this accusation. Regardless, it will be interesting to see what the racing officials will have to say about these specific movements of the McLaren back wing. We are talking about a team that hasn't taken a step back with their upgrades and is the only team on the grid to do so. Even if we ignore Red Bull's downfall, who have gone in a very different direction with their car, both Ferrari and Mercedes have met problems when trying to add more upgrades to their car, but according to Andrea Stella, the reason why his team hasn't done so isn't just because of the excellent technical restructure that's happened in the past couple of months, but also because of the fact that they were very patient with their upgrades. When talking about it, Stella said, "We haven't brought a big upgrade since Miami. The next important upgrade, not as big as Miami, was in Zandvoort, and it didn't involve the whole floor. It was just a detail. It was some other areas of the car. But there is a reason why we haven't brought some upgrades, because we see that had we pressed the go button, we might have had some doubts when these parts were tested full scale on the real car. So we are taking our time to convince ourselves that the development is mature enough to be taken to the track." Of course, it's worth mentioning that McLaren is enjoying the luxury of having the most amount of time to spend in the wind tunnel from the top 4 teams. Considering the fact that they finished 4th last year in the team championship, this means they can test their upgrades a lot more carefully than, for comparison, Red Bull. Red Bull not only has a limited amount of wind tunnel running due to the sporting penalty, but is also doing these runs in a facility that is now 70 years old. On the other hand, McLaren is doing it in a brand new wind tunnel in Woking, one that operates under a restructured technical team led by senior engineers like Rob Marshall and Peter Prodromou. It will be interesting to see what the response from other teams will be, because the old saying, "If you cannot beat it, join it," is very likely to be applied now from Austin onwards. Horner has openly talked about using a front wing that will be a lot more flexible than what they have right now. Still, to believe that all of the Red Bull's missing performance is in this part of the car is a bit unrealistic because, as Verstappen said, the car loses performance on many fronts, and it's not something that can just be fixed overnight. The only worry that the McLaren team has right now is whether or not Norris has grown up enough to challenge Verstappen for the championship in the drivers' category, because in a damage control race in Baku, the British driver managed to finish ahead of Verstappen and cut down 3 additional points. But had he performed better on Saturday, the difference would have been much smaller by now. With all these technical controversies about the car, it would also be interesting to see whether the racing officials will step in and in what way that would be. Judging from recent history, they weren't the clearest when it came to this bending front wing of the McLaren, as they didn't give a clear answer as to whether or not what McLaren has done is legal. With all this in mind, do you think that McLaren's rule breaking is written all over their car? And if so, do you think there's a way to stop this by the end of the season? Let us know down in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.